Atlas is normally silent for that. Um, Welcome to episode 8. I think we agreed on 8.
Yep, it's 8.
8. Ask the D&D professors. I'm Elizabeth, and we let Atlas show their face.
I was gonna say, I want you to know that I point like that every single time we do that, and you have just
Mhm.
never been able to see it until this exact moment.
There you go. We're making history. We're also joined by Scott. Do you two want to say hi?
Hello.
You can fight for the order.
Scott, you can
I
go.
feel weird. I feel weird
All right.
introducing ourselves every time. I feel like if you're here, you've probably seen my face. I'm sorry. Scott, would you like to introduce yourself?
This is the second time my face has been on one of these. I'm Scott Hannenberg. I'm a member of the OTG group and like to DM, like to do rules lawyery stuff, get into the nitty gritty on spell card design and these kinds of things. I also teach music theory and do music theory things.
Go for it, Atlas.
Yippee. Hi, I'm Atlas. Usually you'll see me in chat, or you may have seen us on Thursday playing Baldur's Gate. Um, I. What do I do? A lot of chat, a
The
lot of
faculty, the
graphic
faculty
design,
know nothing about.
a lot of like stream moderation, all those kinds of things. By day, I'm a systems engineering PhD student, and by nights, I get to do a lot of DMing.
And
Alice, I would say you're more of a what don't you do?
That's, I think, a fair assessment. Little bit
you're
of
more of
everything.
a us constantly having to reevaluate our team and priorities and figure out what we can tell Atlas about because Atlas will do it if Atlas hears about it.
That's true. I
We
do
have to
every
figure
now and
out
then just
what
go, give me more things, and you go, hold
yeah
on.
what the most important Atlas items are. Yeah, so for the sake of symmetry, I'm Elizabeth McLean. I'm the token disability studies person on this crew, also a musicologist. And I'm autistic and disabled, and it seems to come up a lot. Um, Man, we should really do one of these that is literally just like ask your most awkward disability questions.
I'll join you for that.
Yeah, we'll have a separate submission form for that. Speaking of which, Atlas is talking and moderating, no judgment there, but is
I've
going
got
to have
three
an iron fist as
screens.
always. 3 screens is plenty. If you would like to submit questions for us to consider, stories you want read, that sort of thing, please use our submission form. Give you a little bit of a heads up that in September we're going to do a back to school series, which seems appropriate given how all of us are going back to school in one fashion or another.
Yeah.
But this one is going to concern a couple of things. First, talking about the OGL, the SRD, these acronyms you hear thrown around about what set of rules third party creators are allowed to use. And then the second thing is comparing 2014 and 2024 Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. So we're both going to get into the differences in the licensing for the 2014 and 2024 rule set, but then also getting into some of the really thorny adjudication of 2024 rules, how things are different. We're going to look at some changes to spells that are small and hard to understand, but they keep popping up everywhere, that sort of thing. So you can go ahead and use our normal form to submit that, but you may see a couple changes to the form in the coming days as we kind of make space for that. When we're doing that, we might as well have space for awkward disability questions, but I think we're going to save that till October because that's Disability Employment Awareness Month, where we're all aware that you can employ the cripples. I say that as a cripple. For those of you who haven't spent a lot of time with me in person, when the ableds, and when I say ableds, I mean the people that are doing an ableism, people that are doing something that's discriminating against people with disabilities actively. I call them ableds. I don't know why I think it's funny, but I do. When the ableds are doing an ableism and making me feel uncomfortable, I'll refer to myself as a cripple to make them feel uncomfortable. I'm not sure that it's healthy. I don't know that it's advancing the cause, but I get a kick out of it.
But I do
So
think
make
it's
of that
funny, so
what
we
you
can go
will.
with that.
They're doing an ableism. I call myself a cripple. Is that doing an activism? Why am I using like millennial doggo speak to have this conversation? I love the fact that I had family visiting. Love that y'all were so welcoming to Christian last week. But I have also learned why it is that I prefer to live alone and quiet. Brain is recovering, so this is going to be especially fun. That said, that's a lot of prelude. And now I'm going to tell you what we're talking about tonight. So, those of you who met us at PAX East or missed us there may get a chance to hang out with us at PAX Unplugged. One of the things that we're doing at PAX Unplugged is running D&D games. Once again, we're going to be doing some in the PAX Together Intersection Game Lounge, but the Access Forward Gaming Lounge is also back in an even bigger way. The room is going to be 3 times bigger, something like that. It's going to include a huge free play space, so people can come in and play their own games. We're going to probably have some sort of lending library, might not be the right word for it, but we'll have access tools that people can check out. We'll have a desk that will have some office hours sort of thing. You can come by and we'll help you with stuff. And we'll also have some structured games like we did before. So if you're wondering, how do I run games either in the AFGL or the PTIGL? Got some answers for you. And we're going to talk about what that experience is like a little bit tonight. Bringing it up because it's very timely. The applications to be a storyteller with PAX Unplugged are due August 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's a very hard deadline. So if at all possible, get it in like, the 13th, just in case there's internet issues. But that will give you access to the PTI storytelling program. And anyone who's been accepted to run a game in the PAX Together intersection will also have the opportunity to say that they would like to work in the Access Forward Gaming Lounge, which will trigger another interview with us, and we'll see if we can make your game accessible and get you on the schedule. That was a lot of information very quickly, and I fully anticipate that Atlas is already dropping some things in the chat. Also, Atlas is Dots helping us in the chat.
No, not yet.
Okay, good. Just needs a day off. Anywho, let's get into it this way. I kind of want to start with Atlas, but I need Atlas to catch up on the bajillion links I just mentioned.
No, you're good.
So Scott, do you remember how many games you ran at East? How many D&D games?
I think I did 3 games. Yeah, or three iterations of one story.
Do you want to? What was the adventure?
Sure. Yeah. So
I kind of already gave away that we only did Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So all 3 of them were in 5th edition 2014 rules, using our pre-con level 7 characters, and the adventure was one of Chris Campobon's opera adventures, which was Lucia of Lammermoor. So this is an adventure. So one of the things that the PTI inclusion tool set does really well is it takes stock of a lot of the different potential topics and triggers that might make a game uncomfortable for some players, depending on their experiences and backgrounds and what have you. Filling out the form for Lucia, I felt like I was ticking a lot of boxes just based, that opera can hit a lot of uncomfortable notes. There are a lot of tropes that come up that, to get things really dramatic, you often have a lot of violence, you often have a lot of conflict and these sorts of
Not
things.
a lot of unnecessary feminisms, though.
Yes, not a lot of that. Probably leans in the opposite direction on that front, really.
That's
Uh,
episode 6,
Yep.
Atlas. I really should mention we don't believe in unnecessary feminisms here. All the feminisms are necessary. But if you go back and see the episode, which once it leaves VOD, it's up on our YouTube, um, where we
yeah,
were talking about being women in gaming and the phrase unnecessary feminism being used by men in ways we still haven't quite figured out. But anyway, yeah, Lucia is filled with, I mean, opera in general, but that I I can't remember if you know this or wherever, if in the sense of I don't remember if this information was ever shared, but that particular opera was sort of joined Chris's project because my students in a seminar that was music and disability specifically wanted to talk about ableism in opera. And they,
oh,
so it's a little tricky when we have this project that is oriented towards like getting into the problems and you're also trying to make it a safe gaming experience for an event. Like
absolutely.
this is a really odd moment.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So we did like a lot of the safety tools were we were leaning on them pretty heavily for that story to just make sure that we had everything that we needed to check in, make sure players felt comfortable to sort of flag moments of discomfort. There was one scene that I sort of always knew I need to have a card handy to sort of, ask the question like I'm going to go into some choppy waters here. Can everybody just, be super aware and let me know, is this going okay? Are we stepping on anyone's toes? Do we need to sort of like zoom out and not cover so much of the detail here? Um, but yeah, those storyteller tools were really awesome for running a game like that.
Yeah, as you mentioned the cards, a little bit of background on this. So in addition to kind of a pre-game inventory of what sorts of things you're comfortable with, not comfortable with, questionable, um, when you're at the table, there's a set of cards. It's sort of analogous to like a red light, green light kind of situation.
Mm.
There's a card to indicate that we need to stop right now and have a conversation about where we're at, but there's also a card that has a question mark that's kind of like a check-in. You just want to see if you're getting a weird vibe or you want some clarity. These cards were redesigned just before PAX East by Jess Dempsey at Dots RPG, executive director for Dots. Number one, to add Braille, but then also to make them a little bit easier on the eyes of people who are low vision or have vision impairments, make sure the color contrast is good, all of that. So they're beautiful cards in orange envelopes that I think we were supposed to give back, and we ended up with several of them, I discovered, because people
Definitely
typed them
are.
into our folders.
Oh
So
no.
I'll try to show some of these later. I fessed up. It's fine. Everyone knows that we did it. It wasn't on purpose. It was our players being helpful and cleaning up for us. I think that got us here. But they're absolutely gorgeous cards and a good way to either holding them up, setting them on the table. You can do it a variety of ways, but have those check-ins, which I think is really essential.
Yeah.
Um, were you in the PAX Together intersection at all, or were you always in the Access Forward Gaming Lounge?
I think I had two in the Access Forward Lounge and one in the PTI Lounge.
Yeah, the PTI was probably a bit louder, I guess.
It was a lot louder, yeah, and honestly, that one stands out as like all of the games were fun in their own ways, but the PTI one, for me personally, I would rank lowest on my list of how much fun I had with them. A lot because it was just harder to focus and harder to feel like we were at a table that was, just immersive and we were just there with each other and no distractions. In the AFGL, that was a lot easier.
Yeah. The PAX Together program looks at things like diversity, inclusion, identity, belonging, and it's going to show up like a lot of ways at PAX conferences. I know some of you that have been to like PAX years ago. This program had a different name, but PAX Together includes the intersection, which is a physical space where nonprofits, orgs like Dots and OTG are often set up in there. Gamers was in there. There was a lot of like LGBTQ orgs. There's some like mental health oriented orgs affiliated too.
Mm.
And half the room is sort of all of these different booths exhibiting with tons and tons of people coming through and checking in the booths and snapping pictures of beautiful backgrounds. And it was all bright and progress pride flags, all sorts of beautiful colors. And then the other half of the room, without really a divider, more of a vibe than a divider, you have the games library where people can actually go and check out games to try. It's like a lending library, and tables where you can play, but then also some structured games from those storyteller applications. So there is a lot going on there. But I will say, if you're looking for a game that feels inclusive of all gender identities, that's thinking about things in terms like about race and homophobia, and I mean, is paying attention to all of these issues and trying to be as welcoming as possible, that's a really great place for you to go.
And
The
I should
access,
say also,
yeah.
like the energy of that whole room was great. I think I was a little overstimulated personally the whole weekend. So to then be running a game in that space, I was pinging a little bit. But like, if you're
Yeah.
coming in for a 3 or 4 hour session and you're going to go into that space knowing that it's like a joyous, exuberant experience, I think you'll have a good time. Um, I don't want to
Absolutely.
besmirch the good name of the
No,
PTI.
no, totally. That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you brought that up because it's a really, really great space. But if you're someone that needs a quieter space, whether there's a disability reason, hearing oriented, just like how much sensory
Yeah.
input you're getting, the Access Forward
Yeah.
Gaming Lounge will be a good fit. And at East, I think we are the only quiet tabletop space now at East.
Mm. Yeah.
Or sorry,
Wow.
not at East, at Unplugged. So that's why we've got a bigger room and there's going to be a lot more free play going on.
Mm.
The Access Forward Gaming Lounge, it's not just for people who identify as disabled. We're not trying to check that everyone has a placard for their car or anything like that. We do explicitly want to make sure that we're supporting people with a variety of different bodies and minds. But you shouldn't be shy about going there, especially if you're going with like a friend who has a particular disability or you're going to check it out for whatever reason. It is open to everyone, and we're just trying especially to be as inclusive as possible. That said, it's not perfect. Going into the first round, we often joked that it was really the Access failing forward lounge in the sense of like we know we can't do everything, so we need to document where it doesn't work and then come back and do better. But what you have is a lot of
Mm.
humans who do have a lot of knowledge, who have access to a lot of tools, who are there to try to help whatever comes up. With the commitment to just being honest about the limitations of what we have, but also really excited about the things that we can offer. So we'll have stuff like auto captions that work in English and Spanish. Although it sounds like our bilingual games, we'll keep you updated. The bilingual games that between where English and Spanish are being spoken may go into the PTI because it's just better in a louder space. But a lot of our games will be a lot more quiet. We've got access to braille dice, a lot of different tools we can use. Should be a pretty good time. So yeah, you mentioned, was there anything else that was like different about being in the AFGL? Did I kind of cover it by speaking over you again?
The AFGL was just like, for me, it just felt so lovely to be in this space where there was not too much going on and we could be at a table. And even I had some players who were just fairly soft spoken and not having to worry about being able to hear them. And just, yeah, it just felt like it was very intimate. We could catch every word. There was space for a little more nuance and subtlety in the gameplay. It's just really lovely.
The one other thing I should mention, which you kind of reminded me of when you mentioned you might have been overstimulated in the other space. The AFGL is also for storytellers, GMs, DMs, people running games who themselves have disabilities and have access needs. I only ran one game at East, and I'll probably just be running one game at Unplugged. It's the same game, which is this adventure based on the Deck of Many Things and the Book of Many Things, or drawing from it, I guess I should say, not based on, but drawing from it, that just feels very autistic, and I could be my very autistic self with a very neurodivergent table. There was space for that. It was absolutely lovely because I don't think I could have DM'd in the PTI. Like, I don't think that would have been accessible for me. But we're going to have even better staffing for the AFGL now. And we've got our friends at Dots helping us out, and it should be a really great space. We're also going to start decorating, getting some color in there so it's more inviting. But that those reveals are coming later. We're just kind of in the experimenting phase. Atlas, did you end up just working the desk in the AFGL the whole time? I don't remember if you got to play anything.
I did not play anything. I worked AFGL and I worked an exhibition table, which was quite fun.
Yeah, we just make Atlas work. It turns out all the
To be
time.
fair, I also signed up to do both of those things actively and joyfully, so
But
you
you
know.
you are going to be a storyteller this time.
I am. I'm fingers crossed running Tosca, which is one of Chris's stories, and I'm very excited for it.
Do you think the AFGL is going to be like where you want to run that? Is that going to be more accessible for
I
you?
think that'll be more accessible for me for a lot of between the neurodiversity and the marching band hearing loss. I think the AFGL is going to be the space for me. Um, though
Not underestimate a marching band hearing loss.
I was gonna say I live with two tubas. It was never I was never going to escape without hearing loss. I play the bagpipes. Um,
Not
so
in the marching band though, just to clarify.
no, just for fun on the side. But I am
On the
hoping
side.
that we get some decoration in there as well because that will make it a lot more fun.
Atlas and I
Yeah.
were talking off the top about like before we hopped on about that I had run some games in the AFGL, but that Atlas probably saw the whole scope of everything that was happening in there a lot better than I did, or a lot of the or GMs did. Just because once you get to the table, you're just sort of so locked in on that group of players. But yeah, I don't know, Atlas. I was wondering, like, what was it like to just see all of the comings and goings and see all of the different events that were happening in there?
Yeah, so there's like a couple things that stick out. The one that comes to mind immediately though is the amount of like intention towards the DMs because it's fairly common, especially as, session zeros become more prevalent, as all these kinds of check-ins become more prevalent. But the Access Forward Gaming Lounge was super intentional about making sure that there was someone on staff, that the DM had someone that they could communicate with in the room if they became uncomfortable, that there was someone that could, help intervene if a player like interaction got out of hand and the DM wasn't comfortable handling it. So while we had those player cards for the players as well, the DMs also all had a card with which they could communicate. All animal themed, and the one I saw most frequently was "All is whale," and it had a big picture of a whale on it. That's like the only thing I remember. Oh, and the bear that said "stop," and like there's definitely two steps in between that. I do not remember what those steps are because it was just all is whale or a bear that just said stop in bold like Arial font.
Oh no! Did you have bear with stop moments while you
um
were working
I was
in the
very
lab?
lucky to not have. I do recall that the closest that we came, one of the nice parts about being in a space that is like intentionally fostering that is that the people were there to intentionally foster that. The closest call we had was uh at Chris's table, and I think it was like the very last thing that he DM'd, and I spent a lot of time just like right kind of at Chris's elbow, like not at the table, but like directly behind him, like ready to step in just in case. And I think Chris and I talked about it later, and we kind of said that if it had been a DM that was any less confident than he was, or who had like any less experience, that it likely would have been a moment where I would have stepped in and been like, "Hey, we're not doing this anymore."
Yeah.
But he and his experience was able to defuse that fairly gracefully with only a few like, "Hey, dude, sit down."
And to be fair, like all of these safety tools are from the PTIGL that we're using. The advantage of the AFGL is you just have like more staff per game kind of happening. And we're going to be even more outfitted this time, should everything go according to plan. It's also worth noting, although we're here talking about D&D, so we're always thinking about this in terms of D&D. If you want to be a storyteller at these things, that doesn't mean that you have to be doing a tabletop role-playing game. So number one does not have to be D&D. We had folks in the room running some Powered by the Apocalypse stuff, all sorts of different stuff. But then also, it doesn't even have to be a tabletop role-playing game, right? If you had a board game that you wanted to bring and you're explicitly trying to make it as accessible as possible, and you're trying to run this so anybody can sign up for it and join it, and you want to have these safety tools with you and do it in this space, you can also apply, right? You could have Uno if you want. One thing we're looking at now, which I don't know that we're ready to give a whole lot of details on, but we are exploring bringing Magic and Pokemon. Magic being for more experienced people, or at least people that kind of know how to play, even if the format's a little bit new. Pokemon being an actual true beginner experience, not only for kids and teens, but like one that is welcoming for kids and teens, and also those with disabilities or who are neurodivergent. So we're looking at expanding the offerings from just the OTG crew, but we'd be open, and I know the PTI is open to all sorts of different stuff. So, and what's the one that was so huge that everybody, there's like a whole Discord server, Blood on the Clock Tower?
Yep.
Like that can be run, and I think one of them was run at least once in the PTI. So yeah, kind of anything that you would want to do. Atlas, there aren't any questions or anything in chat, are they? You'll interrupt me if there are.
I will.
Cool. I know a lot of the people in chat are the people that like helped us at, probably I would guess would be the people that helped us at East and just can't make it to them.
It's Will and Gustavo.
Hi Will, hi Gustavo. Yeah, we're not advertising right now, and Chris isn't here, so his students aren't here, and we don't have the magnetism that is Christian. For the record, Christian was incredibly calm and not as sassy as normal. I don't know how to put that. I need to have him actually mic'd so every one of those little comments is audible because they're so funny.
I still haven't recovered. He was a delight. I had the chance to meet him the following day, but I totally forgot that, like, because I wasn't normally on camera, that he had not seen my face before. So, like, I approached him with all the confidence and swagger of someone that is like, we've interacted for considerable length. Oh my god, this kid has never seen me before in his life.
He cracks me up. It's just, like, absolutely wild. Also, folks, have your fingers crossed because OTG submitted a panel. Dot submitted a panel in a workshop. Like, there could be a lot of really cool stuff happening at Unplugged. I will say, even though Will and Gustavo already know this, but if folks are watching later, you can sign up for a spot on the app. You can only sign up for up to like half of the seats on the app. Otherwise, you just go in person. We are going to have it so that if someone goes to the wrong place, so if they go to the PTI and they want to sign up for a game in the AFGL or the other way around, we are going to be able to communicate. It's not going to be super great. We're going to use Discord. It should be fine. Who knows? But we will have the functionality that if someone signs up for a game at like the OTG booth in the PTI, that we can get that information down there. But my understanding is Unplugged is much more everyone is there to game, even if it's trying something new. People are going to be, it's going to be a more welcoming space in terms of, yes, just come in, wander in, that kind of thing. And if all goes according to plan, we'll be near Take This and another group. So folks that are like, I think we'll be able to catch a lot of people that are kind of in our target audience or like player base by virtue of where we're located. But the AFGL and the PTIGL are almost as far away as possible right now. For East, Philly's going to be nuts.
From each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're working on trying to get a sponsor, because if you have a sponsor, you can get better room locations. So if anybody, there's some promising things in the works, but nothing I would bet money on yet. Although if I had money, I wouldn't have to ask for a sponsor. So, yep, that checks out. Okay, we had something Frank sent me out of the blue. And this is one where I'm not going to read the question because we couldn't confirm the person was comfortable having the question read aloud. But I do want to give Frank credit for the answer and some interesting stuff that's in here. So, this was specifically discussing masks, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse system, but it's going to get to something that is a bit deeper when it comes to tabletop role playing games and conflict. I feel like this is particularly relevant because when you're trying to create inclusive spaces, usually you're trying to minimize conflict, and yet the games we bring in are like entirely about conflict, which has always left me, for lack of a better word, conflicted. Nope. Didn't like it when I thought it, didn't like it as it was coming out of my mouth, but there we are. So, yeah, from Frank, one of the things I appreciate most about Conflict in Masks, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse TTRPG, is that it doesn't have a completely separate subsystem to navigate, like rolling initiative and tracking turns or breaking into exchanges. The same mechanisms you use to resolve arguing with your character's parents or avoiding trouble with the principal are the same ones you use to stop a bank robbery. Narrative stakes aside, you should always be driving toward the answer to this question: why are we in conflict? What does this mean in an actual fight with violence and injury on the line? Well, in theory, your young heroes should be prioritizing ending the fight as quickly as possible, and the quickest end to a fight is avoiding the fight altogether. Unfortunately, conditioning from games that treat combat as a sport can blind players and GMs to this notion. Yeah, you want to use your cool powers, and yeah, Dr. Demento sure does deserve a punch in the mouth, but the more you fight, the more likely things will escalate and bystanders will get hurt. This is why the information gathering moves provide options like, how can we best end this quickly, and what do you want me to do? The heroes are meant to be able to cut to the heart of the matter and talk a villain down to prevent undue violence. It's surprising how much more interesting villains become when the heroes get to understand why they want to commit crimes, and finding a better way to resolve that difference is much more challenging than beating the snot out of every enemy you see. Thoughts? I know there's a lot to chew on there.
The first thing I'm thinking as you read that is thinking back to the sessions that I had at PAX East and how often the folks who were at the tables that I was running were looking for nonviolent solutions or creative ways to avoid or at least mitigate the consequences of a combat scenario that was maybe not necessarily written into, but suggested by some of the paths that the story was leading down, including. So, can I do this without giving a spoiler about the opera? There is a moment where a character is in a location, dead or dying, and this is something that probably happens without the characters making it so. I had one group who caught on to this fact that this character must be somewhere and must not be well wherever they were, and not just avoid engaging directly with the combat, but trying to distract combatants or subdue combatants so that they could get up that place and check on the person who had been by their own.
My knowledge, no group that we had played that with before tried that. Which is funny because the groups we played it with before tried a lot of interesting things, but that's...
Yeah. This was the third group that I ran for, and the first group was also very combat averse, but they were very in the moment, like, here's the combat in front of me, how do we talk ourselves out of this and settle it down in this moment where we are in this room. The second group was perfectly happy to get into some combat, and so they resolved things very differently. And the third group found this sort of, third option that wasn't even on my radar when I started running, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, I think so. I was kind of reminded as you were reading this. I've been getting into video games recently, so I'm gonna take a little step in in a couple directions. But I think that there is a lot of storytelling value in combat oftentimes, and like I've read enough books where they're like, the moment where you learn the most is the battlefield or something along those lines. But I'm also thinking about the way that we tell stories. Oftentimes, the question of what is memorable and what is significant for both characters and players is those moments outside of combat. And that's started to come across a lot more in like my DMing practices. So like I recently just finished Titanfall 2, which shameless plug, go play that. Um but the moments that I remember most about that campaign are actually when the combat just kind of happened on its own. Like the combat mechanisms of that game delightful. I enjoyed it immensely, but the storytelling narrative is really what caught me more than anything else. And there's a moment in the game where the combat just kind of happens and it's not the same mechanism at all. And I'm trying not to spoil it, but I just finished it and it's all in my head. And so the significance of almost changing the combat to have that storytelling significance is really what kind of sticks out to me in that way.
Yeah, I think there's something about how sometimes we're at the table and we joke about like potential ramifications of what we're doing, but there's something far more interesting about exploring those. Um, it's something I've tried to do as a player and as a DM, but on more occasions I'm playing. Is like, okay, what are the ramifications of us choosing violence here? And I don't think it means that there's no place for combat. I don't think that's what we're saying. I think it's more that combat, I like the idea that people are opting into combat, that there are consequences for choosing it and for not choosing it. Like the more there is storytelling potential and everything, right? The way that the choices that you're making, because I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I drop a fireball in the room and not think about what the consequences of said fireball are, especially when you have something like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, which will feel like it has a mechanic for everything, but has nothing for burning buildings. And the number of times Will has forced me to invent burning building mechanics. I'm sorry, buddy. Between that and you basically turning Ed's character into a god by accident, I don't even know anymore. We're all over the place.
Gustavo brings up an interesting point in chat of conflict not always equaling combat, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, number one, this is a way to let your DMs have their villain monologue moment. To have the players actually invested in it. I can't imagine how crappy it must feel when you've been like prepping that for weeks, intentionally or not, right? Like it's in your mind, what am I going to do? And then the players just blow through it because they're thinking about it more like a video game.
But I think that's also that's such a rite of passage for DMs on the one hand, but also for the players. Like, who doesn't love to be that badass hero who's interrupting the villain's monologue? Like,
and or the chaos monster. Yeah. Well, see, Atlas, part of this struggle I'm having to speak is that the minute you start talking about video games and combat and story, all I can think of is Expedition 33. It hasn't been long enough. I can't say anything. People need to experience that game, and they need to preferably experience that game at a time when they're relatively emotionally stable, because it's going to devastate you. But everyone should have the opportunity to be devastated by that game. On the other hand, so Christian bought me Breath of the Wild for my birthday. Ooh. And the only Switch that I had is actually Virginia Tech's. Well, it's an organization at Virginia Tech's. So even though I'm the steward of it and I'm the one that takes care of it, I don't like using it personally, which is a little messed up because systems do stay in better shape when you're using them and not gathering dust and getting dirty and whatever. But like autism ethics, man, I don't know what to tell you. So I went and got a used Switch, mostly so I could play this game and not feel guilty. And yeah, I had to text Chris a very lengthy apology because I was discovering how ridiculous I am as a D&D player by playing Breath of the Wild. I feel like this is one that I can spoil things because number one, I'm like 5 minutes into it. And number two, it's been out for a very long time. I'm generally a good 10 to 20 years behind everyone else when it comes to gaming. I just don't have enough time for it. But you have this one human, or not human, you have this one character show up and act as your mentor, like this old man, to get you through the first part of it. Absolutely convinced I needed to murder that SOB. I have no idea why. He gave me every like indicator that he
He's
was a
so
shady
nice.
villain. And I tried to kill him so many times in so many different ways, and nothing worked. Fine, whatever. So I get past that part, and I still don't believe him. Anyway, get past that part. And this also, by the way, could be a consequence of voice acting. I haven't looked it up before, but this has happened to me when I play a video game and the voice actor has played a villain in another video game. I don't even remember that that's the association. I just assume this person's about to screw me over. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. My brain is broken. But as soon as I got to like from that introductory level out into the open world, I found some horses. Keep in mind, I lived in a vacuum, so I didn't know anything about this game. I'm
Uh,
sneaking up on the horses to get a closer look. And then all of a sudden, it's like hit the A button if you want to mount a horse. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. So and then I'm on this horse, and I have to kind of learn, you have to like soothe it because it's a wild horse and all that. Then I'm like, shoot, I'm on a horse. What do I do now? So I'm just like wandering around with it, and I'm so scared that if I get off of it, it's going to run away. And it's such like a nice little horse. I don't want to let go of the horse. So I call Christian, and he's like, "Well, you have to find a stable because if you find a stable, you can register it, and then it's like your horse." I'm like, okay, where's the stable? He's like, I don't know. I played that game a long time ago. Why are you asking me? So then I just start wandering around the entire open world, skipping every plot hook, every fight, every treasure chest I see because I am not getting off this horse, damn it, until I find a stable. So then I register the horse at the stable. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I can get other horses. And then the whole like spotted versus solid color means different things about the horse's weird like variant of colorism. It's really messing with my head. I don't know. So to feel better about that, I wandered off to find more horses to tame. Bring another horse back. It's fine. I get on track for like 5 minutes, mostly because I want to be able to like ride the horse to locations as I'm making friends with it and training it and whatnot. It's a great mechanic. And at one point, we're wandering in an area and I hear a sound. So I get off the horse and I start like crouching and getting closer, and it's a giant bear. I'm like, this is so cool. I want to get closer. So I get like right up behind the bear.
Wait,
The A button
I have to,
appears.
Elizabeth, just because this is so much exactly how you play D&D, I have to know, when you saw the bear, was your first thought you want to ride the bear?
No, my first thought was I just wanted to get up next to it and see it. But then once I got there, the A button emerged and I could ride the bear. Right? I'm like, what is happening right now? So I get up on this bear, and of course, like, it's really, really hard to tame. And I was like, so what is happening? That it knocked me off and like slashed my head, and I fell off a cliff. It's fine. So we go back and do it again. And I had to figure out where like there were some enemies hidden to kill the enemies because like when you're trying to calm the bear, it's kind of like wandering around, and I didn't want to like die from them or have the bear hurt by them because I'm still not real clear on like if the horses or the bear can die. So eventually I tame this bear, and then I decide the most logical thing to do is take it to the stable so I can keep it. It didn't go well. They would not let me register the bear. So I'm like, well, maybe it's just this stable, and I haven't found a second stable yet. Let's just wander out into the wilderness. After a while, I'm like, I probably should Google this. And sure enough, you cannot register a bear.
I've
Although
got
there
to
are
say,
people that have ridden a bear to like every corner of the map and taken screenshots.
I also do want to throw this out there that the voice actor for the character that you tried to kill, first of all, voices Brock in the majority of Pokemon game, like franchises, but
First
also
or second Brock?
I don't know. It just says Brock, kind of across the board.
Does it say a year?
No. Hold on.
If it's only for like 3 years, it's original Brock.
No, it's for a lot longer than that.
So it's second Brock. So
Yes,
that
but
that
he
would explain.
also
I can't get over the new voices on
he
the
also
Pokemon
voices
anime. That's
someone
another
named
thing.
Dark Lord Torvald. So maybe that's where you're getting the villain vibes from.
Could be either. It was really, it's just skate. It's so shady. Like, you're like, okay, go in this thing, prove that you're a hero, and then give me the proof that you're
Trust
a
me on
hero.
this one, bro.
That is a villain arc,
I'm
right?
so-
Like, if this is the thing you're going to do to be powerful enough to save the world, and he wants to take it from you for some stupid little hang glider. Anyway, you can also
How did
cook.
we?
So this is
How
this
did
is the
we get
problem, right?
here?
Okay, I will
Elizabeth, tie it
circle it
back
back to
to
you. The
Combat,
conflict.
yeah,
conflict. There's a lot of
But that's the
ways.
thing,
yes.
right? Is like everybody is going to be approaching these games 110% differently. So what do you do when you have the combat person at your table,
Mm,
but you also have like the pacifists or the alternate solutions or the I just want to go
yeah.
ride a bear.
So one thing that comes up for me there is this
Chris
idea
isn't
of
here to
like
say it, so it's just in my head. Go ahead.
that like your combats are more interesting if the goal is not win by killing everyone, right? Like like there's a ritual happening, you have to stop the ritual, and in order to do that, like maybe you fight your way past a bunch of people who are there to try and kill you, but maybe you find a way to subdue them other ways or sneak around or what have you. Or there's an item that's hidden past a bunch of people who would love to fight you, but fighting them isn't the only way to get to that item. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also think
I
that
guess it just takes it back to the players, right? Like then they have to negotiate. Are they going to do what the combat-oriented player wants to do, or are they going to follow what other players would rather do? Sorry, Atlas.
no, you're good. I think it also comes down to like the way that like kind of what you're including in your sessions at large. Because like if you I and for context, I run almost exclusively one shots because happy graduate student schedule. Um, but as I'm designing these, I'm keeping in mind that like if I have a player that just really doesn't enjoy combat, I'm not gonna make it 3 combat encounters in a trench coat, you know? And so as you're designing these things, not only am I usually thinking of, well, what experience will bring my players joy, because that's usually how my DM ideas start, but also if I am going to have this combat oriented thing, and I know I have someone that just really doesn't enjoy combat and someone who really does enjoy combat, can I have them doing the same thing in different ways? Where maybe the combat oriented person is tanking damage from this big bad evil guy, and maybe the other way that you actually defeat him because he keeps resurrecting is to destroy the glowing pots in all 4 corners. Can I make you solve a puzzle and defeat a BBEG at the same time?
Totally. I love that. Man.
Yeah, I
The
really
other cool,
like that.
yeah, the other cool thing that came out of the way Frank wrote that for me was that I get like I've never played in a Powered by the Apocalypse system. Have either of you?
Nope.
I have only been a GM for one, and it was Avatar: The Last Airbender, which it
Is the
sounds like
hardest
might be
one.
the yeah, even though it's the
Mm.
most for kids, and it is another one where like it's based on a show that is constantly asking ethical questions about violence.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, so ripe for this topic for sure. Um, but no, I think the thing I was hearing there was that it's the rule set itself that frames how these things play out, and that's interesting to think of because I've D&D is the only one that I've played where it really is. Here's a book about how to build a character. 80% of the things that your character can do are oriented towards combat. A bunch of the rules are specific to combat. Here's another book of monsters that are a set of abilities, at least 80% of which are geared towards combat. Like D&D is let's tell a story and have a rules when combat would happen. And then inevitably when you frame coming into the game through all of those rule books, you go into it with this expectation that combat is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
or
I mean,
or like you're
most of your
saying,
characters' like abilities and cool fun things are combat driven.
yeah. And while you're building that character, you're getting excited about, oh, I hope I get to do all of these. I hope I get to do this combo in combat. So yeah, it I don't know. The
So
medium is the message, sort of thing.
it was a long post, so I kind of stopped in the middle, and now I want to finish it.
Mm.
So Frank went on, philosophical junk aside, if a fight must happen, make things messy. I like modeling a supers fight after Jackie Chan fight sequences. There's never just one thing at stake in moving toward disaster. Force the PCs to spin many plates and make hard decisions. We need to fight the kaiju in Halcyon Harbor, but if we only fight the kaiju, then the massive waves the fight kicks up will devastate the docks and the scenic foodie residential district. So we need to also evacuate civilians. What, the kaiju is just a distraction, and Ronald Repugnant is stealing Rook Industries' experimental weapons from the Wiseman docks while his monster wreaks havoc? We can't let Ronald have those weapons. There's no telling what he'll do with them. Every time the players help one situation, push another toward disaster. Keep countdown clocks, aggressively announce future badness. And if they focus, let them get what they want, but hit them with the consequences for ignoring other aspects of the scene. It's not cruel, it's dramatic.
Hmm.
Have
I
you
love.
seen? There's a board of dials. It's an artwork piece where as you move one dial, every single other dial changes, and there are things like joy, happiness, like democracy, war, like all these different kinds of concepts. And as you change one, all the others will adjust. And sometimes, like, there was one that I saw that if you amp up one all the way, eventually it'll auto adjust back down because of how all the other dials reacted.
Uh,
I'm gonna try and send a link in
Please
the
stop
chat.
describing 2025, Atlas.
yeah.
It's really cool, but that's what it makes me think of.
I do have a Reddit story for that.
Uh-oh. Scott, I may have cut you off. Were you saying something?
No, you're good. I was just gonna say I love the idea that, like, yes, there are complications, but the players have a sense that they are causing the complications. The complications aren't built into the scenario and they're going to go off in their own course as the scenario unfolds. It's only should the players trigger them through their choices and actions. That's a really lovely way to make things feel dramatic in an organic way.
Absolutely. Which just occurred to me, this is unrelated, but we 100% need a shout out for Will right now because Will just finished DMing a campaign that started at like level 2 or 3 and went to 20.
Oh my gosh.
And it was
Holy
like
crap.
created based on one shots and things like that, some pre-written but heavily altered to actually form a campaign. And it was his
Wow,
wife and his wife's friends.
I
amazing.
love that though.
Apparently there was a rescue a cleric from the afterlife situation. Not going to spill the details, but there was a very, very epic finale. Offing the cleric is bold. Love it.
That's
So
huge.
speaking of villains and 2025 villains,
Oh no.
that time I made myself uncomfortable by RPing as the wrong kind of villain. Asked by proper author,
Oh, I didn't think we were gonna make these.
9800. This is really the only one we'll have time for, but it feels relevant. Not sure how much this qualifies as a horror story, since this one is short and has no real problem player or villain. It did mark the way I DM, so I feel it's worth mentioning. I don't remember which Reddit this is from. I wonder if it's D&D Horror Stories. Anyway.
I think it is.
I had a player on my Chronicles of Darkness table a while ago whose character was a left-leaning politician. He jokingly mentioned having designed him after Che Guevara and played him accordingly. Incidentally, he also had a Middle Eastern girlfriend who happened to be a werewolf. Questions? Anyway. During one session that was directly related to his character's political career, I decided to create an antagonist who could make a good foil to him. So I made a far-right politician, which I intentionally made as bad as possible. Guy was sexist, racist, and xenophobic. I wanted the guy to be as loathable as possible. While that worked, it kind of backfired. When it came time to RP, or roleplay, I realized that there was a strong difference between writing down notes on an NPC and actually playing them. I tried getting in the role, having the guy spit out typical far-right rhetoric against the player, even having him deliver a jab at his girlfriend's origins. While this did succeed in making the player hate the guy, it also made me extremely uncomfortable. Even if I was just playing a role, it just felt plain wrong to say lines based on ideas I found repulsive in real life. Eventually, I ended up shortening the session and having them confront the guy sooner than intended. When a mummy player beheaded him with an axe, I had no complaints. Since then, I've carefully avoided doing villains like this again, instead mostly sticking to more fantastical or sympathetic antagonists. At least those ones I can RP without feeling too awful. TLDR, I try introducing a relatively realistic far-right bigoted villain in my urban fantasy RPG game, only to feel extremely uncomfortable when having to play him and deliver his lines.
Eek.
That's tough.
Chad. Anyway, we haven't released that yet. It's fine.
It's fine. I think
It is tough. Yeah.
one of the things that kind of like pops out is in terms of the way that I haven't run a villain like this, but when I think about my villains, it for me as a standpoint of like, you're not fighting your DM, you're fighting the villain kind of thing. And in the same way, like it's not that you are that villain, but at the same time, like so there's like a little bit of that rationalization of like I am not this villain, but at the same time it's like, oh, I wouldn't want to be saying that. Elizabeth, like I wouldn't want to be saying this either. Like Elizabeth, last week when I had you, not last week, the week before, when I was like, I feel like I need to warn you because I'm setting you up to repeat sexist rhetoric and that feels bad and wrong.
Many unnecessary feminisms, what can I say?
Yeah, but like I was so worried about setting you up to repeat those things that like I also would really struggle in that scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a bit of a leg up in this regard because I do this as part of my job, right? Like it's very common for me to have to voice something ableist or sexist or racist for my students to react against it. So I do think it bothers me less. Like I'm more able to see these things as a character, even as I respect other people's. I think the thing that would be terrifying for me, without getting into too much, like my background and upbringing makes it so these caricatures are more three-dimensional for me, right? Like I do know people that believe these things, and I know why they believe these things and how they believe these things. Right. So I don't know if it would make it better or worse if I was in those shoes. I mean, first thing is like if it's uncomfortable and y'all aren't having a good time, move on. But yeah.
It sounds to me like the way that this DM is describing things, though, it's like I imagine that their players are on board. I imagine that they think that their players can separate, their beliefs from the character's beliefs. I imagine that they feel like the way that they are painting this character, their players are going to respond by amping up the drama and by getting into it, like that this is all good for the gameplay. It sounds like what they're uncomfortable with is just how they feel in that moment. Like that's really tough to know that the things that you want to do to give your players a rewarding, compelling experience are also things that you personally don't want to be doing.
And that for me is almost where I think about those DM cards. Is that, like just as every player has a set of cards at that table, so too does the DM, who might not be comfortable with playing that kind of role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of good examples of something that's happening. It's so funny because since we were talking about Powered by the Apocalypse and I said Avatar The Last Airbender, there's a moment in the sequel Legends of Korra, where someone who was a hero, you come back in the next season
Ooh.
and they become a tyrannical fascist dictator. And it's really funny when, Christian was the little guy back then. Because, like, this was through the pandemic and stuff. We were watching, like, an episode a day. We'd both be on the phone, watching it on Netflix kind of deal. And I love when he was just like, "Oh, I finally understand how totalitarian systems work." I'm like, "Okay, we needed to hit that before you hit double digits." But, like, that show is wild. Adults should watch Avatar
I
and
watched it when I
Korra.
was a kid and then watched it again as an adult and was like,
Same with Clone Wars. Like, stick through the goofiness at the beginning and have your mind blown. But I think there is something about, like, needing to be prepared to play the hero. And this is where I think if the extent of your hero is a bunch of racisms wrapped up in a person, then there's not a lot to play. And I kind of wonder if this was in that vein where it was like just a caricature. I think that's the part that's worth highlighting. Versus if it's a fleshed out villain, I don't know, what's it feel like to be Strahd?
Yeah, this is one thing I was thinking about here, and I think where I go wrong as a DM in these scenarios is the opposite end of the spectrum from what this person is describing, where in order to feel like I can inhabit a character, I have to make them relate to a certain extent to me.
Mm-hmm.
And something that can accidentally happen then is I start thinking, no, this person has a rationale for behaving this way. This is reasonable. This is okay. And I will dig into that a little bit too much. And that can be uncomfortable for players, or not maybe uncomfortable, but I think also definitely frustrating. Where it's like, why won't this person, break the facade and just engage us in combat so then we can. Where if a character is feeling, no, I'm rational, this makes sense, I'm the good one here, then you can just get into these verbal sparring matches that don't really go anywhere, and that's not satisfying gameplay, I don't think.
I'm trying to figure out if this is where I grab my Strahd visual aid.
oh, great heavens.
No, I got a Lego blind box from one of the nibblings for my birthday. One of the Dungeons and Dragons ones, and I got Strahd. I was so thrilled. A lot of hair on that one. But yeah, I think you can have your reasons and still be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it says something too, I think, about how people view evil. Like, I mean, without making this too traumatic an experience for all of us, I think some people in the US are more and less surprised about the second Trump administration happening, right? And it has to do with, like, your take on how these things happen. I think the older I get, the more banal evil really is. Like, the more it is just unchecked power and greed and, capitalism is the BBEG, right? But, like, so much of this game reflects what we see in the world and how we view the world, and also helps us process that. Sometimes you have a game where you're all playing a bunch of anti-heroes and you're all kind of messed up and you're committing war crimes left and right. But, like, your ability to acknowledge that these are war crimes is still, like, in some way reinforcing a shared concept of morality, and there are consequences for it, and, like, that, that kind of thing. So I think maybe the takeaway here is, whether it's a combat or a villain, like, feeling earned, like, having an internal logic, even if that logic is wrong. I mean, if you have a politician who is going to stoke racism and xenophobia and whatever, simply because if he doesn't, he's probably going to prison. And this is his only path towards, avoiding that, then, and people repeat these lies enough, they do start believing them. Like that's plenty, I think, to both humanize but also still make them accountable for their actions. And I think this does get at like a fundamental thing where I may disagree with a lot of people, which is that, how do we handle situations where you understand why someone's doing something, but they still need to be held
Mhm.
accountable for what they're doing.
Yeah, an explanation is not an excuse, or or a
Yeah.
justification.
And it's wild that this is a game. I mean, it's one of many art forms, right? But I love that this is a game where people can kind of explore a lot of these complexities. And I will say, like, part of creating a world that feels earned, I mean, if you let your players go into combats, slash and hack, and there be no consequences, they're most of the time they end up getting villainous. Like, one of the best ways to deal with murder hobos is to have a consequence for their actions. Um, so yeah, it is a fascinating thing. But I like the idea too of a DM needing to be supported, because this sounds like a situation where a player was playing kind of a jokey character and caricature, and you can get away with that in a way that you can't get away with it for a BBEG. Like, I think the
Uh-huh.
DM almost has to humanize and think through the implications of the villains far more than characters do. Because they can play Farty McFartface, and it doesn't necessarily destroy things that are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The things I think about when I go back and forth between playing and DMing.
No, I think that's really good. Like, because that was one of the first thoughts I had was, it is making the BBEG like more cartoonish. Is that an escape hatch here to sort of like wash your hands of how icky and super real it feels? But maybe the opposite's true. Maybe it's more fulfilling and rewarding to have that understanding of the rationalization and the reasoning for this, and to see them as a complex entity, so that when you're saying those reprehensible things, there's a place where it's coming from, and that gives the inevitable confrontation, whether it's combat or not, that gives it more teeth, that makes it more rewarding, more cathartic.
But it is something everyone needs to consent to. I mean, I think about the times that, Chris was DMing and our characters start pursuing, or character concepts, I should say, they weren't real yet. We start pursuing a storyline that is very fantasy racism, and Chris is like, I'm not down to DM a fantasy racist right now. Legit. You know,
Yeah.
so it does need to, I think, be that sustained negotiation. It's just, the conversation around combat is such an interesting one, because I think there's one sense where we could be like, well, the moral high ground is we shouldn't be killing people, so why are we playing this war game? But then you go back to stuff that's getting added to my syllabus this year around who gets to define peace and violence.
Uh-huh.
So, you look at protests, and when a protest gets declared peaceful and when it's not, is so fucking arbitrary. Man, that's two of them this
Mm-hmm.
round. We're on Twitch, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
But
I
it is
put the swearing
so
one on.
good. It is so arbitrary. I mean, except it's not, right? It's just whatever benefits the state. The
Right.
idea that a child throwing a rock should be grabbed and thrown in prison or disappeared, right? Like the disproportionality of state violent response to
Mm-hmm.
an individual's or a citizenry's use of violence. So I think sometimes there's also space for thinking about it in D&D terms, where it's not as simple as, you know, because even in most D&D terms, people aren't questioning the right of the city guards to like arrest and imprison people. Like, it's wild how these parts of our structures just get
Yeah.
embedded into it
No.
without a lot of questions.
And that's one of the most like facile moves a DM can make too. Is like, oh, my players are being murder hobos. Let's have the city guard come and lock them up. Like,
Which is wild because, like, you know, incarceration hasn't really seemed to help much of anybody, but we're still doing it
right,
in our games.
exactly.
We try to
Well,
rein
and
in our
really,
murder hobos. Yeah.
you're trying to fight fire with fire, right? You're telling your
Mhm.
players like, yeah, exerting physical force is the solution to these sorts of situations, which is what they were doing in the first place.
maybe it is like giving players agency for them to decide when actions are justified and not, to experience the consequences of that. Yeah. But yeah, it is all a big, big tricky mess. I think we broke Atlas slightly.
Happy Dungeons and Dragons. I'm listening, and it's like I'm in class again, except classes haven't started yet, and I'm just like listening to two faculty lecture, just like. Which, and I want to be clear, that is a compliment. I enjoy going to lectures.
I mean, it's in the title, so I feel like nobody can hold it against me. But no, I mean, I will tell you, my assignment when I would teach the disability rights movement in class, my assignment would be for them to go and find a 21st century disability protest and talk about it. Like, give me your news source, talk about what happened, and then try to also like analyze the coverage. What words are they using and why, that kind of thing. Students really struggled with it, in part because now there is very, very little coverage of these things compared to how frequently they happen. They almost never break through the news, even when people are being arrested in the dozens and in the Capitol building, not being mentioned. Now they're going to be comparing. I'm probably going to provide the sources for them if they're having trouble finding them, or get them in groups to find the sources for part one. But I want them to compare and contrast the response to very particular protest tactics used by the disability rights movement back, especially in the 70s, the 60s and 70s versus now. And the way that like the 504 sit-ins, which is the reason we have any rights at all, the 504 sit-ins would not have gone the same way today. Like, people were scandalized back then that the FBI was like calling in fake bomb threats and shutting off the power and shutting off the phones and depriving them of water and stuff like that. Are you kidding? Like, there would have been a SWAT team. There would have been blood. Because they have made, like, in 2025 in the United States, disabled people have shed blood protesting for their rights in the United States. Period. But none of that's like covered anymore. So I think we're gonna do a lot more of that stuff. But it is interesting to me how like D&D mirrors our world, is a world we want that's different, is just escapism, is all of these things.
Yeah. But also how deep some of the assumptions we have go, how unquestioned they are, how they get mirrored in the fantasy world. Like, what can you do in world building to try and chip away at that bedrock?
And I mean, I just love setting up tyranny and watching them try to find solutions to it. Gosh, we really need to get Tosca released, because I really want to talk about a choice Gustavo made. Yeah, we really need to get that released.
There's also
the choice Gustavo makes in like the third act that just completely blew our minds. Yeah.
I gotta go back and write that one down better. I'm also thinking, Scott, I thought of this while we started talking about Tosca. There's something that one of my friends has asked me to run called Eat the Reich, like as in the Nazi Reich.
Oh.
Which
one of the panelists has run this. If I can find out, I'll let you know.
Which I've been told is a very, hold on, I'm actually gonna pull up a descriptor. Where, oh Christ, I'm gonna pull this straight from their website. Eat the Reich is a TTRPG in which you, a vampire commando, are dropped into an occupied Paris and must cut a bloody swath through the Nazis to drink all of Adolf Hitler's blood.
Oh, it's Nyx has played it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I got asked to run that recently. And just thought about that kind of while we were talking about it.
That is a delightful game description.
It really, if I buy it, which it's looking at like I might, I'll bring it to Unplugged with me and you can take a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can get a game on at some point, some evening.
100% down.
That'll be the evening games we do.
Yeah.
trying to get almost everyone from our crew and Dots' crew in the same hotel to facilitate things like that. We'll see. Fingers crossed. It's turning into a little bit of a nightmare making hotel reservations because people just book more rooms than they need and then they just slowly let them go. So you have to try to pick them up. So yeah, any of y'all that want to come with us, make your hotel reservations early
Please.
and often.
I'm so excited.
We just need this to be a big enough success that we can go back to Unplugged and oh my gosh, we need Unplugged to be a big enough success. We can go back to East and, get Will in again. Hopefully by then we'll get Pocket DMing because I think Pocket's going to be an amazing DM if she ever chooses, which hopefully she chooses.
Yeah.
Using all their mind control powers.
Hopefully we just get a lot of great stuff happening in the PTI and AFGLs.
People are choosing whether or not they want to engage in violence, experiencing the consequences thereof. This did not go exactly the direction I had in mind, but that was just like too great from Frank to ignore. Absolutely love it. I mean, we've run very long. Who knows when we're supposed to end? I don't know.
I was going to say, do you want to call it? Do you want to keep talking?
We could. I just keep talking. It's this or go try to find another bear. Man, Chris is not here, so I just have to listen to them in my head.
I see this, I own Breath of the Wild, and I didn't know there were bears.
I mean, you tell me you can't stable a bear. I just hear, this isn't a game, or I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say, Elizabeth, that you're not trying hard enough because I don't think that that's ever been true of anything
that she's done ever.
It's so funny because the voice in my head is always telling me that I'm lazy and not working hard enough.
Wrong, but continue.
But that's why Chris has to act like my mother.
Yeah.
It's fine. No,
I think we just need to get back to Icewind Dale and find you bears and.
I was just about to turn into a bear. Like the next session, my character Corey, who's Corey, he, him, and already has 2 polar bears. Chris had no idea I didn't even know Chris. Oh, that poor man. Like this is how Chris got to know me, is showing up in a game and like pretty much instantly conning my way into 2 polar bears. Anyway,
this was some big syndrome stuff of like what's the worst that could happen? Sure, you have a pet bear or 2. It's gonna be fine.
And you know what? There are players out there that not only would have a pet bear but forget they have a pet bear. You know what I mean? I am not that player. No. But no, I am really, really not sure how to feel about the fact that Chris definitely taught Christian to call things homophobic. So we spent the several days after that. It was like having a mini Chris. It's like that's.
I was gonna say because like I can't remember if that happened on stream or just immediately before the stream.
I think both.
Oh, great heavens!
But it's absolutely wonderful because Christian's like favorite pastime is making fun of manosphere bloggers and podcasters. I don't know why I said bloggers because I'm old. I just think it's funny because if you ask someone in his generation where the word podcast comes from, they have no frame of reference. Like the closest they can get are earpods or AirPods.
Oh no.
They don't know what an iPod is.
I didn't know that's where it came from either. and I have an iPod.
Oh my god. I'm so old. But I'll never be as old as Chris. Sorry.
Is that
He's not even here. We're just going for the throat.
I was gonna say he's catching strays from not even being here.
I mean, the deal used to be he could do that in June, but then July I got to call ableism. But then the 2 of us just started doing it year round. So, it's the little things that get you through life. But yeah, no, this is stuff that's not easy to kind of wrap our brains around in one session, but I'm glad we chatted through some of the complexities of it, because I do think like once you start taking games that are trying to address the isms, because it's one thing to be like, we're just banning racism, sexism, whatever from a table. That's a choice. It's a valid choice. But sometimes what our project is intentionally doing is letting people process that or letting them push and fight back against it. And then how do you do that without replicating those systems at the table? Like that to me is very, very interesting. So thank you for helping me take those small pieces apart. Although granted, again, if you want to be a storyteller and you just want to play Go Fish, you are welcome to. You do not have to deal with the complexities of buying a man a fish versus teaching him to fish versus whether or not anyone could ever pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
I was gonna say, Elizabeth, I'll run
All that
Tosca.
aside.
I'll run Tosca at Unplugged, and then I'll also just run Uno as like a debrief.
I mean, I have Braille Uno. We'll have Braille Uno. Everyone has Braille Uno. But no,
get Braille Uno.
Yeah, seriously though, be thinking about stuff. If you're interested in Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, let us know. Maybe some draft.
Gosh, I hope so.
And at some point, one of you's gonna teach me how to play Magic, please.
I do not know enough to teach anyone. I know enough to lose games to Caitlin. Am I wrong, Scott? No.
Everyone who plays Caitlin knows enough to lose games to Caitlin. Is how I see it.
She's a beast. It's amazing. It's wild. Although my oldest nephew is very, very into Magic. We got him a commander deck on the Final Fantasy ones this week. And I'm always like, oh, I should get into Magic. And then I realized that like my Pokemon card thing is already expensive enough. Although, here's something. You want a trivia fact? We're just completely off the rails tonight. I'm sorry. My brain is. The amount of pain that I'm in is such that like all I can handle is bears in Zelda. But like, oh man, that's just like circling my brain 60 different ways and Chris isn't even here. Okay. But here's the thing. I have a base set Venusaur, and I have a base set 2 Charizard, and I have the first Pokemon movie Ancient Mew promos still in their original plastic with the original card that asked you to decode the message and bring it to your nearest Pokemon gym to get a reward. I'm sitting on cards that are actually like worth a bit. It's a little confusing. I know absolutely nothing about whether or not to get them graded. So this is the exploration I'm going to go on at Unplugged.
I don't want to stick my neck out too far here because I haven't kept up with Pokemon after Red and Blue. So I probably don't know what I'm talking about. But my thinking is I don't remember a bear in Pokemon. There probably is one
There's
by
a
now.
lot.
There's several, a lot, I think.
Arguably, Snorlax is bear and cat.
There's also
he's got the
like
cat ears. His
bear,
cat's
really
there? Yeah, well, there's a lot of them now, but like, oh gosh, okay. I was just playing Pokemon Shield. It's been a rough day, y'all. I just got to switch. You got to do things. The cute little guy who looks like a red panda and turns into a bear. Ursaluna is the bear. What's the little guy's name?
Teddy Ursa? No. You said looks like a red panda?
No, I'm mixing up 2 different ones. Teddy Ursa turns into Ursaluna. The little red panda one turns into Beware, doesn't he? We're Googling. There are so many of them you don't even know. There's over 1,000 now.
I also don't know how to spell it.
So it's Stuffle. Stuffle turns into Beware. 11 nieces and nephews. So every time somebody thinks they grew out of it, somebody else grows into it and then gets everybody back in it again.
That does look like a pink red panda.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't know anything about Pokemon, and that is cool. I learned that about myself today. But there are absolutely bears in Magic, and if that's your excuse to spend more time in the Magic universe, I would love to introduce you.
This is the funny thing. Like, bears aren't even my favorite animal. Lions are my favorite animal, but then owl bears and bears are awesome. I think I just like animals. That's a big part of it. I also, where I grew up, you know how when bears are like getting into trash and getting bad habits being fed by humans, they come and capture them and they relocate them. They like put the tags in their ears so you know they've been relocated. But I lived where they relocated them. So like it was not uncommon to get a call and be like, "Hey, your stupid dog chased the bear onto our porch again. Can you come get him?" This was a little mutt that like it was just a stray that ended up at our house. He was like this big and was like a terrier that looked like Benji and was fearless. He just chased bears around the neighborhood for fun. That's what he did. So like I've been within 10 feet, certainly, probably even closer to black bears in the dark multiple times.
Yeah.
Unless it's a mother bear with her cubs, it's usually not a problem. But she was such a problem that she smashed the glass in our garage door, reached her paw and pulled it like it was like a lid from a can of sardines just to get dog food inside of like a garbage can sort of thing with a lid on it. Um, she got trapped and went to Virginia Tech a few months before I did. Be part of a study. Anyway, no, black bears are wonderful. So, you know, you get the owl bears, you get the polar bears. It's like becoming a thing I'm seeing now. But yeah, I do. Like, magic is great. Magic is expensive. It's very time consuming. I think it's a lot easier to dip in and out of Pokemon Land for stretches. But hey, anybody wants to play Pokemon cards on the Pokemon app, you know where to find me. I will not destroy you. I do have like the deck that just won Worlds, but it wasn't played by me. Played by somebody from Blacksburg, though. The Blacksburg native just won Worlds with a Gardevoir EX deck, which is also the deck I play. Yeah, very cool. Also, only 60 cards in a deck. None of this 100 cards.
Too.
Isn't it 100 cards for a commander deck?
There's different formats. There's 60 cards. There's 100 cards. There's 40 cards. Yep.
I don't know, Atlas. I stick with the cute little Pokemon.
It's a wide world out there.
You know how hard it was?
Titanfall. Cut me some slack.
Do you know how hard it was for me to conceptualize that when you put a card down for magic, that's not the creature. It's the spell that summons the creature. Because in Pokemon, it is the creature, right? Like you have a bench that only has 5 spots because that plus the active is the 6 Pokeballs that you could have in Pokemon Red or Blue or so on. It doesn't really matter, but it does.
I'm not a magic judge, so don't come after me in the comments, but I think it's kind of both. I feel like when it's in your library or when it's in your hand, it's the spell, but then when it lands on the battlefield, it like becomes the creature or something like that.
Something like that. I just remember Caitlin explaining it to me, and it was like, you know the sequences in movies where they're trying to find a way to visually portray that someone is stoned? That's what it felt like. Like not even like it felt like a movie sequence. I don't know how to explain it. I was just like, this isn't... Why? Why are we doing this? Tapping lands, mana. But that's the other thing. If you played Pokemon cards back in the old days, it was common to have 15 to 20 energy in deck. You had tons of energy in your decks. Tons of different Pokemon, a few different trainers. Now it's like, you're lucky if you have 5 different types of different Pokemon in it. And then there was an argument, a massive argument about whether you needed 5 or 6 energies in this one Charizard deck. It's a weird game now. It's like half the deck is just trainers. It's so strange. But, you know, people are having a good time, and it's generally a far more chill community than Magic. Although the scalpers have been kind of ruining it the last year, so... It's just... It should be able to buy toys. It should be able to buy Pokemon cards. I don't know why this is controversial, but it is. Anyway, capitalism is the big bad. This has been Ask the D&D Professors.
Ask the D&D Professors. All right, bye, folks. Happy live stream.